Hello and welcome. Today we quietly unfold the life story of Ankylosaurus, a majestic living tank from the final days of the Cretaceous period. This tranquil journey invites you to learn about how this remarkable dinosaur lived, grew, and defended itself in a world rich with wonders and dangers.
If you find calm fascination in each moment, please consider subscribing. And if you'd like us to explore another dinosaur species in the future, just let us know. Ankylosaurus lived about 68 to 66 million years ago, during the Maastrichtian stage of the Late Cretaceous. Fossil evidence comes primarily from what is today North America, particularly the Hell Creek Formation in Montana, as well as formations in Wyoming, Alberta, and Saskatchewan. The environment was a warm, subtropical coastal plain with monsoonal rains and periodic storms. The landscape included forests of flowering plants, conifers, ferns, and cycads. This lush background provided the setting for its growth from hatchling to fully armored adult. All dinosaurs, including Ankylosaurs, reproduce by laying hard-shelled eggs, with a variety of shapes and sizes. Though eggs specifically attributed to Ankylosaurus are rare or unknown, we can draw from broader late Cretaceous nesting evidence. Studies suggest many non-avian dinosaurs, possibly including Ankylosaurs, laid their eggs in shallow depressions and likely partially buried them, covering them with vegetation or sediment to maintain temperature and protect them. This is consistent with incubation strategies seen in close relatives and other ornithischians. Modern comparisons show that non-avian reptiles and early birds may have used a combination of buried incubation or brooding, though giant dinosaurs probably relied more on substrate incubation or passive cover due to their size. Like many dinosaurs, Ankylosaurus likely hatched at a small size relative to adults, making the early stages of life particularly vulnerable to predators and environmental factors. While direct fossils of Ankylosaurus hatchlings are not yet known, neonatal-sized Ankylosaurus specimens have been documented in related species, indicating they began as small, fragile creatures encased in their eggs. Within the broader dinosaur world, baby dinosaurs were typically much smaller than adults, and though growth could be rapid, early life remained perilous. Ankylosaurs belong to the Thyrophora clade. It's characterized by heavy body armor known as osteoderms, bony plates embedded in the skin. Histological studies of ankylosaur long bones and osteoderms reveal a fibrolamellar bone structure, mixing woven and parallel fibered bone. This arrangement produced slow growth rates compared to more lightly armored dinosaurs, along with extensive bone remodeling as juveniles developed their protective armor. The armor itself, beginning as small ossicles, grew and transformed. Over time, they developed thick cortexes and structural fiber bundles, resulting in a light yet strong armor. Growth of these osteoderms generally lagged behind the main skeleton, thickening and reinforcing during the subadult stage. In early life, Ankylosaurus would have relied on size, camouflage, and emerging armor to defend itself. Hatchlings likely sought dense underbrush or forest edges for protection. Fossil evidence supports that young Ankylosaurs might have grouped together, perhaps offering safety in numbers. As they grew, their osteoderms became more robust, laying the groundwork for their later nearly impervious defenses. From egg to juvenile, Ankylosaurus began life in sheltered environments and faced the challenges of predation and growth. Their early experiences set the stage for the powerful, armored adults they would become. Gentle and patient, they grew into their legendary defenses. Ankylosaurus was a striking presence in the ancient landscape. Its body, low to the ground and encased in thick protective plating, was a testament to evolution's patience. This armor, composed of bony plates called osteoderms, served not just as a shield, but as a shaping force behind many aspects of its biology and behavior. Ankylosaurus measured up to 8 meters long and could weigh over 6 tons. Much of that weight came from its armor. The osteoderms that covered its back, sides, and possibly even portions of its limbs and tail were not superficial. They were deeply embedded into the skin, forming a continuous layer of interlocking defense. Each osteoderm varied in shape and size, with some forming large oval plates, while others were smaller, polygonal nodules. Together, they created a quilt-like surface, tough and impenetrable to most attacks. These bony plates were capped with a layer of keratin, the same protein that forms claws, horns, and beaks in other animals. The keratin sheath added durability while providing a smooth outer layer that likely resisted both biting and clawing. Along the flanks and neck, the osteoderms were thicker, offering extra protection where vital organs and the spine were most exposed. The top of the skull bore fused bone structures, forming a thick, domed surface. The eyes were set within deeply recessed sockets, likely protected by bony ridges or hornlets. This cranial adaptation ensured the head, often a vulnerable target, was equally defended. Perhaps the most famous feature of Ankylosaurus was its tail. At the tip of this muscular, stiffened appendage lay a massive bony club, formed by two large osteoderms fused into a single structure. The tail itself was reinforced by a series of stiffened tendons and ossified rods, allowing Ankylosaurus to swing it horizontally with controlled, powerful motion. This club was not ornamental. Its construction suggests it could deliver substantial force, potentially capable of breaking bones. It served as both a deterrent and a weapon. A predator approaching from behind risked a sudden, crippling blow. For large theropods like Tyrannosaurus, which may have targeted the flanks or tail during an attack, this posed a serious hazard. Importantly, this club was not present in juveniles. Fossil studies suggest it developed gradually as the animal aged. Early in life, Ankylosaurus would not have had this full tail club, relying more on camouflage, speed, and hiding. Only as it matured did this weapon become a central element of its defense. While its armor was formidable, it came with trade-offs. Ankylosaurus was not a fast animal. Its limbs were short and sturdy, adapted for stability rather than speed. Its gait was slow and deliberate. The front limbs were shorter than the hind limbs, giving it a slightly downward-sloping profile. This helped maintain a low center of gravity, which was beneficial for balance, especially during turns or while using the tail club. The heavy osteoderms and tail reinforcement added weight, but the body plan compensated through strong muscles and broad limb bones. An Ankylosaurus was not agile, but it was well-grounded. Its movement was quiet and controlled, allowing it to traverse dense underbrush or navigate uneven terrain without losing stability. Tracks from other Ankylosaurs suggest they moved in straight paths with a wide stance. The broad pelvis and strong shoulders helped distribute weight, reducing the strain on any one limb. This allowed Ankylosaurus to support its armor without becoming immobile. Defense was not limited to armor alone. Ankylosaurus also had adaptations for awareness. Its skull shows evidence of a complex nasal system, with a maze of air passages that may have enhanced its sense of smell. This could have allowed it to detect predators from a distance or recognize subtle changes in its environment. The inner ear structure suggests it could detect low-frequency sounds, possibly aiding in communication or detecting distant movement. Its eyes were protected by bony ridges, yet they offered a wide field of vision, ideal for spotting threats from the sides. Some studies suggest the skull may have had specialized sinuses that reduced its weight or helped regulate temperature. Others hypothesize these cavities might have been part of an internal resonance system, allowing Ankylosaurus to produce low sounds for communication. While speculative, these adaptations point toward an animal well-equipped to detect danger and respond quickly. Despite its slow movement, the development of osteoderms in dinosaurs was not unique to Ankylosaurus. Its distant relatives, the stegosaurs, also had plates and tail spikes. But in Ankylosaurs, this adaptation reached its peak. The entire body was transformed into a defensive structure. This extreme form of body armor reflects a long evolutionary path shaped by consistent pressure from large predators. Ankylosaurs and their kin appeared in the Middle Jurassic and diversified across the globe. Over millions of years, they became more heavily armored. Ankylosaurus, as the last and largest member of this lineage, represents the culmination of that evolutionary journey. The function of armor was primarily defensive, but it may have also played roles in social signaling or thermoregulation. Some paleontologists speculate that variations in osteoderm shape or arrangement could have helped individuals recognize each other or signal maturity. However, direct evidence for display behavior in Ankylosaurus remains limited. What is clear is that this armor system was successful. Ankylosaurus was one of the last non-avian dinosaurs to exist before the extinction event at the end of the Cretaceous. Its body plan, slow but stable, defensive yet mobile, allowed it to thrive in a landscape filled with threats. Ankylosaurus was not a predator. It did not chase, strike, or pounce. Its entire being was shaped by a different philosophy: resist, endure, survive. Its armor was not just a shell, but an identity. Turned away aggression without needing to flee. It moved with certainty, protected not by speed, but by strength and silence. Now that we've explored how Ankylosaurus developed its legendary armor and the physical adaptations that came with it, let us now talk about how this creature found its food in a world of dense forests and towering ferns. Ankylosaurus was a low-browsing herbivore. Its heavy armor and wide, squat build made it ill-suited for reaching high vegetation. Instead, it focused on plants close to the ground, navigating forests and floodplains in search of soft, nutritious vegetation that it could crop with its beak and grind with its leaf-shaped teeth. The skull of Ankylosaurus was broad and low, with a curved, downward-facing snout. This positioning placed the mouth close to the ground, ideal for foraging among ferns, low shrubs, and fallen leaves. The front of the mouth was equipped with a toothless, keratin-covered beak, which it used to bite or shear through plant material. Behind this beak, it possessed small leaf-shaped teeth arranged in relatively simple rows. These teeth were not sharp like those of carnivorous dinosaurs. Instead, they were adapted for chopping and crushing plant matter. Unlike hadrosaurs or ceratopsians, which had complex dental batteries capable of processing tough vegetation, the Ankylosaurus had a simpler dental setup. This suggests it fed on relatively soft plants, avoiding material that required prolonged chewing. It likely did not chew extensively. Once material passed through the mouth, it was processed further by the gut. Many paleontologists believe Ankylosaurus, like other large herbivores, relied on microbial fermentation in an enlarged digestive tract to break down cellulose and extract nutrients from fibrous plant material. Direct fossil evidence of gut contents in Ankylosaurus itself is currently lacking. But indirect clues and comparisons with related ankylosaurs provide insight. Studies of ankylosaur relatives have revealed fragments of leafy twigs, seeds, and fruits in preserved stomach contents. This supports the idea that their diet included a mix of soft-leaved plants, ferns, flowering plants, and low shrubs. During the Late Cretaceous, angiosperms flowering plants were becoming increasingly common. These would have provided a wide range of nutritious options, including leaves, fruits, and possibly even early flowers. Ankylosaurus likely took advantage of this diversity. Ferns and cycads remained abundant, especially in the wetter parts of its habitat, and these too would have been included in its diet. Due to its low-slung body and limited reach, Ankylosaurus fed almost exclusively on plants, no higher than about a meter above the ground. Its beak allowed it to nip leaves cleanly, and its teeth could crush softer plant matter before swallowing. Ankylosaurus was a selective feeder. Its beak and teeth structure suggest it chose tender parts of plants over tough stems or woody branches. Rather than stripping whole bushes, it likely cropped leaves and low-hanging branches with precision. Its movements through the landscape would have been slow and deliberate, stopping frequently to graze. Its weight and size meant it required a substantial daily intake of plant material. Like modern elephants or rhinos, Ankylosaurus probably spent much of its day foraging. The digestive strategy it relied on, gut fermentation, requires large volumes of food to sustain the microbial populations that break down plant fibers. Ankylosaurus likely preferred areas with dense undergrowth or forest edges, where soft vegetation was plentiful. Seasonal changes may have influenced its foraging routes, encouraging movement between wetter, lusher areas and drier, more open woodlands depending on rainfall patterns. Fossil trackways from other ankylosaurs indicate that these animals traveled alone or in small groups, moving in wide, slow steps. These paths may have reflected regular feeding routes, worn down over time as individuals returned to favored patches of vegetation. In its ecosystem, an ankylosaur shared space with other herbivorous dinosaurs like Triceratops and Edmontosaurus, both of which had different feeding strategies. Triceratops used its powerful beak and teeth to shear through tougher plants and shrubs, while Edmontosaurus, a hadrosaur, could grind food extensively with its complex dental battery. Ankylosaurus filled a different niche. It was a low-level forager, not competing directly with these higher-browsing species. This separation of feeding styles helped minimize competition, allowing each species to exploit a specific range of plant resources. Its narrow snout and small teeth suggest Ankylosaurus may have been a more selective feeder than its size might imply, rather than grazing indiscriminately. It likely picked out particular plant parts, focusing on softer, nutrient-rich materials. This selectivity helped it maintain its massive size without overloading its digestive system, although we have no preserved stomachs from Ankylosaurus. Size and diet strongly suggests a hindgut fermentation system. Similar to those seen in modern herbivorous reptiles and mammals, this system relies on symbiotic microbes to break down plant fibers in a specialized part of the intestine, such as the cecum or colon. This type of digestion is slow but efficient, allowing Ankylosaurus to extract energy from otherwise indigestible plant matter. It also means that digestion continued long after food was eaten, with Ankylosaurus spending significant time resting or standing still as fermentation took place. Its large barrel-shaped torso could have housed a voluminous gut with long intestines and microbial chambers. This, along with its low metabolism, meant that Ankylosaurus could survive on a plant-based diet, even in times when food was less abundant. As long as it maintained a slow, energy-efficient lifestyle, there's also the possibility that it swallowed gastroliths, small stones used to aid in digestion. Some Ankylosaur fossils have been found with rounded stones near the stomach area. These may have helped grind plant material, acting as a kind of internal mill to compensate for relatively weak chewing. Ankylosaurus likely foraged during the early morning and late afternoon, avoiding the hottest part of the day. Its heavy armor, while protective, may have also made it prone to overheating. Finding shaded areas to rest or moving slowly through forested regions would have helped regulate body temperature while feeding. Seasonal variations would have affected food availability. In wetter months, flowering plants and ferns would have been abundant, while drier periods may have pushed Ankylosaurus to seek out more resilient plant species or travel farther to reach suitable food sources. Over time, its slow, steady foraging strategy proved effective. Its body was not built for rapid action, but for patient endurance. By eating constantly and moving slowly, it could maintain its enormous bulk without the need for high-calorie food sources or rapid digestion. Ankylosaurus fed low to the ground, with a beak for cropping and teeth for crushing. It favored soft, leafy plants and flowering vegetation, digesting them slowly through fermentation. Its feeding was quiet, efficient, and sustained, much like the animal itself. Now that we've explored how Ankylosaurus found nourishment in the forests and floodplains of the Late Cretaceous, let us now talk about how it lived among others of its kind, how it may have mated, and what we understand about its social life. We now talk about how Ankylosaurus may have interacted with others of its kind. This includes behaviors surrounding mating, possible social patterns, and how reproduction shaped its evolutionary success during the final age of the dinosaurs. The fossil record does not often preserve behaviors, especially complex social interactions. Yet by piecing together clues from bones, trackways, and comparisons with close relatives, paleontologists have begun to form cautious insights into the social and reproductive life of Ankylosaurus. What emerges is a quiet picture of a slow-moving, larmored animal that may have been more socially aware and behaviorally complex than its solitary appearance might suggest. Ankylosaurus, like all dinosaurs, reproduced by laying eggs. The precise age at which it reached sexual maturity is not definitively known. But based on growth studies and related ankylosaurs, it likely occurred around the time its body reached approximately 2/3 of its adult size. This may have taken between 10 and 15 years, depending on environmental conditions and food availability. Bone histology from related species shows that growth was steady, but not rapid. This supports the idea that Ankylosaurus took time to develop, investing heavily in physical structure, especially their armor, before fully maturing. Only after most of the protective osteoderms had solidified would the animal be capable of entering the breeding population. As with many large, long-lived herbivores, reproductive success likely depended on size and stability. A more robust individual would be better protected and more attractive to mates, whether through direct signals or simply through its survival and presence. One question often asked in paleontology is whether male and female dinosaurs looked different. This is known as sexual dimorphism. In the case of Ankylosaurus, the answer remains unclear. The fossil sample size is too small to definitively identify consistent differences in shape, size, or ornamentation between individuals that could be linked to sex. However, Subtle differences in osteoderm patterns or tail club shape have been proposed by some researchers. In other animals, features such as horn size, color patterns, or crests often differ between sexes and are used in courtship or combat. It is possible that Ankylosaurus exhibited similar differences, perhaps in the size of specific osteoderms, the spacing of neck armor, or the breadth of the tail club. But without soft tissue preservation, or a larger sample of well-preserved specimens, these ideas remain speculative. For now, the assumption is that males and females were broadly similar in appearance, with behavior rather than ornamentation playing a larger role in mating. If Ankylosaurus did use visual cues in mating, it would have done so with subtlety. Its body was covered in armor, leaving few areas for elaborate display. However, the placement of osteoderms and the shape of the skull could still have carried visual meaning. Some paleontologists suggest that the tail club, in addition to being a weapon, may have played a role in social signaling. A larger or more symmetrical club might have indicated health or maturity. In closely related species, some individuals show variation in osteoderm shape and size that might correspond to visual displays used in non-lethal competition or in attracting mates. Just as modern tortoises may engage in slow, deliberate movements as part of courtship, Ankylosaurus may have used body posture, tail positioning, or even low-frequency sounds to communicate readiness to mate. Unlike species with horns or antlers, Ankylosaurus did not seem built for head-on combat. However, intraspecific competition, conflict between members of the same species, is a common part of life for many animals. It is possible that two Ankylosaurus individuals might have squared off by circling each other and swinging their tail clubs in controlled strikes. If this behavior occurred, it would likely have been ritualized rather than destructive, much like how modern bighorn sheep butt heads without inflicting fatal wounds. Ankylosaurus may have used its tail in symbolic displays of strength. The club was heavy, but its placement and support suggest it could be moved with precision. A slow-motion swing to the flank of a rival might have served to establish dominance without lasting harm. The thick osteoderms along the sides and hips would have absorbed these blows, reducing injury while allowing the behavior to play out. If this behavior existed, it would have required restraint and coordination, traits associated with social animals capable of complex interactions. The question of whether Ankylosaurus lived alone or in groups is difficult to answer. Unlike hadrosaurs, which left behind mass nesting sites and herd trackways, Ankylosaur fossils are usually found singly. This has led to the traditional assumption that they were solitary animals. However, solitary does not necessarily mean antisocial. It is possible that Ankylosaurus lived in loose social groups that did not travel in tight herds. Individuals may have shared foraging grounds or rested in the same sheltered regions without forming strong social bonds. During the breeding season, they may have gathered in temporary pairs or small groups to mate and lay eggs before dispersing again. Some Ankylosaur trackways from related species show parallel movements, which could indicate group travel. These trackways are not numerous, but they suggest that under certain conditions, such as during migration or while searching for seasonal food, Ankylosaurus may have tolerated or even benefited from being near others of its kind. In juvenile stages, group living may have been more common. Young animals still growing their armor and vulnerable to predators may have sought safety in numbers. As they matured, their increasing size and natural defense could have supported a more solitary lifestyle. Although no direct evidence of Ankylosaurus nests or eggs has been found, comparisons with other dinosaurs help fill in the picture. Many dinosaurs, especially ornithicians, are thought to have built simple nests in soil or sand. These nests were shallow depressions, sometimes arranged in clusters. The eggs would be covered with sediment or plant material to insulate and protect them. Whether Ankylosaurus exhibited any parental care is unknown. Some dinosaurs, such as certain theropods and hadrosaurs, may have guarded their nests or remained with hatchlings for a short time. In Ankylosaurus, this remains speculative. Given its heavy body and low mobility, extensive nest guarding seems less likely. But brief periods of watchfulness or assistance to hatchlings cannot be ruled out. Newly hatched Ankylosaurus would have lacked full armor and the tail club. Their survival would have depended on remaining hidden, growing quickly, and avoiding predators. If parenting occurred, it may have involved leading young to cover or remaining nearby until their osteoderms hardened. Alternatively, they may have been left to survive on their own shortly after hatching. There is limited evidence for communication in Ankylosaurus, but certain anatomical features suggest possibilities. The structure of the nasal passages, with long and looping airways, could have functioned in sound production or resonance. These airways may have allowed Ankylosaurus to emit low-frequency sounds, similar to the rumbling vocalizations of modern elephants or crocodilians. Low sounds travel farther through dense vegetation and over long distances. If Ankylosaurus lived in semi-social groups, such vocalizations could have been used to signal location, warn of threats, or coordinate movement. While no direct evidence confirms vocalization, the nasal complexity makes this a plausible hypothesis. Additionally, physical gestures, such as raising the tail, shifting posture, or subtle body movements, may have conveyed information to nearby individuals. In slow-moving animals, nonverbal communication is often favored over rapid or loud displays. An Ankylosaurus may have relied on these gentle signals to navigate social encounters without aggression. Ankylosaurus was not a flamboyant animal. Its behaviors were quiet, its displays subtle, its life grounded in the rhythms of slow movement and steady survival. Reproduction and social interaction likely followed this pattern, measured, deliberate, and shaped by the constraints and protections of its armor. Now that we've looked at how Ankylosaurus might have lived among its own kind and passed its traits forward through reproduction, let us now explore how it came to disappear and what traces of its existence remain in stone and study. Ankylosaurus lived in the final chapter of the Mesozoic era, a time when North America teemed with diverse plant and animal life. Yet even as it thrived in the lush environments of the Late Cretaceous, the world around it was slowly changing. Then, in a geological instant, those changes accelerated beyond recovery. This segment reflects on the disappearance of Ankylosaurus and the deeper legacy it left behind. The Maastrichtian stage, which lasted from roughly 72 to 66 million years ago, was the final age of the dinosaurs. It was a time of relative warmth, high sea levels, and broad coastal floodplains. In western North America, where Ankylosaurus lived, the land was part of an area called Media, separated from the rest of the continent by a shallow inland sea. This region supported a variety of plant life, including conifers, ferns, cycads, and increasingly dominant flowering plants. Dinosaurs such as Triceratops, Edmontosaurus, and Tyrannosaurus lived alongside Ankylosaurus, forming one of the most complex ecosystems in dinosaur history. Yet subtle environmental stressors had begun to emerge. Volcanic activity, shifting climates, and gradual changes in plant communities placed growing pressure on the balance of life. Even so, there is no evidence that Ankylosaurus was in decline prior to the extinction event. It remained a successful, widespread species up to the very end of the Cretaceous. Roughly 66 million years ago, Earth was struck by a massive asteroid. The impact site, now known as the Chicxulub crater, lies buried beneath the peninsula in Mexico. Measuring over 10 kilometers wide, the asteroid released an amount of energy equivalent to billions of nuclear bombs. It vaporized rock, ignited global wildfires, and sent a massive shockwave through the atmosphere. The initial effects were catastrophic. Earthquakes, tsunamis, and rain composed of molten debris would have devastated ecosystems close to the impact. But it was the aftermath that dealt the final blow. Dust and soot filled the sky, blocking sunlight for months or even years. Global temperatures dropped, photosynthesis slowed or stopped altogether. The food chain collapsed, beginning with the plants and filtering upward through herbivores and eventually predators. Ankylosaurus, dependent on continuous plant foraging, would have been affected quickly. As vegetation died, so too did the herbivores. Without enough food to support their bulk, individuals would have grown weak, failed to reproduce, or succumbed to starvation. The once thriving forests that supported their quiet lives turned barren. There is no fossil evidence of Ankylosaurus or any non-avian dinosaur after the boundary marked by the KPG extinction layer. The extinction event did not affect all life equally. Large-bodied animals fared poorly, especially those that required specific habitats or diets. Species that were small, adaptable, or capable of burrowing or surviving on detritus had better chances. Some mammals, Birds, amphibians, and reptiles survived, eventually repopulating the devastated planet. But the specialized design of Ankylosaurus, so effective in a stable world, left it vulnerable to sudden sweeping change. Its slow metabolism, reliance on low-growing plants, and heavy body meant it could not adapt quickly. The very features that made it resilient in a world of predators could not shield it from the loss of its food, its environment, or the light that sustained the plants it depended on. Yet in extinction, Ankylosaurus joined a long lineage of life that had risen and fallen. Its disappearance marked the end of one chapter, and the beginning of another, one that would eventually see the rise of mammals, and much later, the first humans. Ankylosaurus remains are relatively rare compared to more commonly found dinosaurs like Triceratops. Fossils attributed directly to Ankylosaurus have been found in areas such as Montana, Wyoming, and Alberta. Most of these remains are isolated fragments, partial skulls, pieces of armor, tail clubs, and scattered bones. This rarity may be due to a combination of biological and environmental factors. Ankylosaurus may have lived in smaller numbers or preferred habitats where fossilization was less likely. Its heavy armor and low-slung body may have made it more difficult for complete skeletons to be preserved intact. Additionally, scavengers and natural decay could have broken down the body before burial could occur. Despite the limited remains, each discovery has added clarity to the image of this animal. Skull fragments have confirmed its wide, armored head. Tail clubs show variations in size and form. Isolated osteoderms reveal how the armor fit together across the back and flanks. Each fossil, though partial, helps build a broader picture of its anatomy, behavior, and ecology. Ankylosaurus was first described in 1908, and since then has remained an enduring figure in both science and the public imagination. Its name, meaning fused lizard, refers to the fused bones of its skull and armor, one of the most distinctive anatomical features known among dinosaurs. As a member of the Ankylosauridae family, Ankylosauruda represents the peak of armor development. Its legacy can be seen in the study of convergent evolution, how different species across time and space develop similar features in response to similar pressures. Modern animals such as armadillos, pangolins, and even turtles show echoes of the same evolutionary strategy. Defense through body modification, slowness over speed, stability over agility. Ankylosaurus also plays a role in educational outreach and museum exhibitions. Despite its rarity, reconstructions of the animal are popular in displays due to its unusual form and strong visual appeal. Life-sized models allow visitors to stand beside a creature that once roamed the earth protected by living armor. More importantly, Ankylosaurus contributes to the larger conversation about extinction. What causes it, what survives, and how life recovers. Its story, preserved in rock and studied by generations of paleontologists, continues to remind us that stability is fragile. Survival often depends on adaptability in the face of sudden change. Ankylosaurus disappeared with the rest of the non-avian dinosaurs at the end of the Cretaceous. Its extinction was swift, brought on by events far beyond its control. Yet through the study of its fossils and the lessons drawn from its form, Ankylosaurus has become more than just a relic. It has become a symbol of ancient defense, evolutionary specialization, and the deep time rhythms of rise and fall. Now that we've seen how Ankylosaurus came to an end and what remains of its time on Earth, let us now explore the path of its fossil discoveries, the careful, patient work of scientists who brought its bones out of the ground and into the light of understanding. Ankylosaurus was first recognized over a century ago, yet our understanding of it is still incomplete. The discovery and study of this dinosaur have involved decades of fossil hunting, taxonomic debate, and technological progress. This final segment walks slowly through the process of how Ankylosaurus came to be known. From the first bones removed from ancient rocks to the quiet halls of museums where its story is told today, Ankylosaurus was formally described in 1908 by American paleontologist Barnum Brown. One of the most prominent fossil hunters of the early 20th century, he is best known for discovering the first partial skeleton of Tyrannosaurus rex. But during his expeditions to Montana, he also uncovered a partial skull, some vertebrae, ribs, and a few pieces of armor that belonged to a different unknown dinosaur. These remains were found in the Hell Creek Formation, a late Cretaceous geological layer known for its rich fossil content. Upon examining the bones, Brown noted the heavy armor and distinctive fused skull bones, leading him to name the creature Ankylosaurus magniventris. The genus name Ankylosaurus means fused lizard, referencing the solid, interlocked bones of its skull and body. The species name magniventris means great belly, a nod to the animal's large, rounded body. This initial find was fragmentary, but it was enough to establish Ankylosaurus as a unique genus. Over the years, other partial specimens have helped flesh out its anatomy, although full skeletons remain elusive. Molosaurus fossils have been found primarily in North America, especially in Montana, Alberta, and Wyoming. These regions were once part of Laramida, a narrow landmass bordered by the western interior seaway to the east and mountains to the west. Habitats here included river deltas, floodplains, and forested lowlands, providing ideal conditions for large herbivores. Despite its size and prominence, Ankylosaurus remains are relatively rare. Most fossil sites yield isolated bones or fragments, pieces of skulls, tail clubs, ribs, and armor plates. Complete skeletons have never been found. Much of what we know comes from assembling these pieces, comparing them to close relatives, and carefully reconstructing likely arrangements of osteoderms and limb positions. The Hell Creek Formation, in particular, has provided key finds for Ankylosaurus and many other late Cretaceous dinosaurs. The conditions of preservation in this formation often favor bones that are well separated and weathered, which may explain why Ankylosaurus remains are typically fragmentary. Studying Ankylosaurus has not been straightforward. One major difficulty is distinguishing it from other ankylosaurs. Several closely related generals such as Ualplocephalus, Anodontosaurus, and Scalosaurus share similar features. These dinosaurs lived earlier in the Cretaceous and were also heavily armored. At one point, some paleontologists proposed that Ankylosaurus might be a species of Ualplocephalus, or simply a regional variation. However, continued study has reinforced that Ankylosaurus magniventris is a distinct species. It differs in skull shape, armor configuration, and tail club structure. The tail club of Ankylosaurus is proportionally larger and more massive than those of other ankylosaurids. Its skull is also wider, with a different arrangement of fused bones and nasal passages. Reconstructing its full anatomy has required careful comparison, because no single fossil shows the entire body. Researchers have had to merge data from different specimens. This process involves educated assumptions about how certain bones fit together and which traits belong specifically to Ankylosaurus and not to other genera. These challenges have led to debates within the scientific community. Each new discovery, no matter how small, has the potential to shift interpretations. As technology improves, including the use of CT scans and digital modeling, scientists are revisiting older specimens to gain fresh insight. The partial remains of Ankylosaurus are housed in several major museums. These include institutions such as the American Museum of Natural History in New York and the Royal Tyrrell Museum in Alberta. Because of the limited number of fossils, many Ankylosaurus exhibits feature casts or reconstructions built from related species. Filled in with inferred details based on the known anatomy, these reconstructions must strike a balance between accuracy and visual completeness. Early models of Ankylosaurus were often overly bulky or portrayed the armor incorrectly. As more fossils became available, especially better skull material, these reconstructions were updated. Today's models show a lower, broader body with a more accurate tail club and refined armor patterns. Museum exhibits serve a dual purpose. They inform the public about the scientific story of Ankylosaurus, while also providing a visual, tangible connection to Earth's distant past. Standing beside a life-size model of Ankylosaurus invites quiet reflection on the vast span of time, the nature of extinction, and the complexity of life long gone. Even though Ankylosaurus was named over a century ago, research is far from complete. Paleontologists continue to examine existing specimens, revisit field sites, and refine classification methods. The hope is that more complete skeletons will eventually be found, helping to confirm or revise current reconstructions. There is also a focus on histology, the study of bone microstructure. By slicing thin sections of fossil bone and examining them under microscopes, scientists can learn about growth patterns, metabolism, and the age at death of individuals. Studies like these can help determine how long Ankylosaurus lived, how fast it grew, and when it reached maturity. Digital modeling and biomechanical simulations are also advancing our understanding of Ankylosaurus. These methods allow researchers to test hypotheses about how the tail club functioned, how the armor distributed weight, and how the animal moved. Over time, these approaches may resolve long-standing questions about its behavior and evolution. Fossil preparation techniques have also improved. Some older specimens, encased in thick plaster or embedded in hard rock, are being re-prepared using fine tools and scanning technology. This has led to new discoveries even within bones collected decades ago. As paleontology continues to evolve, Ankylosaurus remains a valuable subject. Not only as a biological curiosity, but as a reminder that every discovery builds on the quiet, careful work of generations of scientists. The story of Ankylosaurus is not just one of extinction, but of rediscovery. From scattered bones and rocky outcrops to museum halls and academic journals, this armored giant has left a quiet imprint on science and imagination alike. Its fossils, rare but resilient, remind us that even the most defensively equipped animals are vulnerable to larger forces. Yet through the persistence of researchers and the careful interpretation of stone, Ankylosaurus continues to speak, offering lessons in adaptation, balance, and the delicate structure of ancient ecosystems. Unlike the predators that shared its world, Ankylosaurus was not built for speed or domination. It endured through patience, protection, and resilience. And even now, millions of years later, it endures in the stone layers of North America and the careful work of those who bring its story to life. Thank you for spending time with this quiet story from the ancient Earth. Ankylosaurus was not swift, and it did not dominate its world through speed or size. It survived by moving slowly, by carrying its strength in silence, and by adapting in a way that left it armored against the world. Though its bones now rest in stone, its legacy continues in the careful hands of paleontologists and in the minds of those who take the time to learn, to imagine, and to wonder. Each fossil, each footprint, each preserved fragment is a quiet voice from the past. Listening to it helps us understand not only how life once was, but how fragile and connected it remains today. If you found comfort or insight in this long reflection, please consider subscribing to the channel. It helps us bring more of these stories into the light, gently and with care. You are always welcome here. And if there is another ancient creature you'd like us to explore, let us know in the comments. Stay curious. Time moves slowly. Let history whisper.